Yulia, how it was for you? How you ended up in this role?
Yeah, I actually have a little bit interesting experience because before I started in this QA manager role, like 1 year ago, I was working as a project leader for 1.5 years. And before that, I was trying to be a business analyst. And I actually was like, a few times coming back to test lead QA manager position. So I feel like, okay, now I finally decided this is what I like. This is like, I had a few chances to try something else and confirm that task management and task leadership is actually something for me. So for in my case, it was pretty like, decision made, and I was thinking and reflecting a lot on where I want to develop and what I want to do. So working with test processes and test organization and organizing people, organizing different groups and different test activities is really something that I'm passionate about. And I'm basically, this is how I ended up in where I am now.
Okay. And Kwesi, how did you end up being in your role?
Well, I think it's two things really. I think it's one, generally, it was the autonomy and being really driven to try and make both the way that we do things better. And I sort of really had a vision for what I wanted, like my role and testing to look like. And basically, by sort of insisting that we drove towards that position, it just sort of made sense that I drove that in a leadership role. It was that, and also being lucky enough to get the opportunity to do it. So often to get your first leadership role, it requires a bit of luck, being in the right place at the right time, and having somebody trust that you have the right sort of character to do the role. So I was lucky that in my current department, the opportunity became available, and my manager said that it was right for me.
All right. And Priyanka.
Yeah. So for me, it was pretty organically came, the leadership role. From the beginning, I'm very, very interested to learn everything first when it comes, like from my school days to my career. So, and I love to help people. So whenever it came as a group setting, like we were discussing something or we were working on a project, I always came across like the person who takes the charge or who takes the first step to make sure that everybody has what they need, everybody has all the information. And I was pretty good at multitasking. So one thing I noticed that different people have different strength. So if you give somebody a particular work and they're very good at it, suppose manual testing or automation, they might not be good at other thing. Whereas when it came to my role, I was always on the top of what everybody else was doing. So it came pretty organically. And when I got an opportunity, I took it up as a director of QA for a small startup. And I integrated a whole QA team there first. And I found like that's my passion and that's what I'm good at. So last 3 jobs, I'm doing that. And like dealing with 13 different people in different time zones, it's not easy, and making their life better and making their life such a way that they enjoy their work is a big part of my leadership. So it came pretty organically to me.
Wonderful. So it seems that even though it was kind of organic, but a lot of you kind of ended up in this role because of something in, something the way you want it. Did you have enough skills when you just start kind of in that leadership position? Did you have enough training, enough skills to do what you start doing in the leadership role? And I'll start with Fiona.
Absolutely not. I'm going to go back to my very first testing job, and this may be familiar to a lot of you, is that I was hired as the sole tester in a software development company. And so, of course, I couldn't do all the testing myself. It was a smallish company, but a big product. We developed a manufacturing execution system for semiconductor manufacturing. And not only did I have a huge job to learn the domain, the business domain, but of course I hadn't actually done any testing before, and I certainly hadn't done any leadership before. I came at it out of a technical writing job. But because I was the only tester, and we needed everybody to test when we did a major release. And part of my job was not only to do testing, but also to organize everybody else to do testing. And I started learning organizational skills and learning some leadership skills as I did that. But no, certainly not. And not even, later when I became a sort of formal test manager in a consulting company where I was responsible for establishing a testing practice. Again, there were always things that I had to learn how to do.
Wonderful. Amy Jo Esser is joining us, and I would like Amy to introduce herself, because we just went through the round of introduction, but also the question is, did you have the skills when you start taking this leadership position? Did you have enough skills? Amy Jo.
Hi. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well.
Okay. And hopefully I'll stay on. I was first day at a new office and my regular docking station isn't working, and I'm trying to work off of an internet connection. It bounced off. So hopefully we'll stay on here. So I started out as a developer probably 35 years ago. And from there, I ended up switching into testing. And so I've probably been doing that 20, 25 years. And I've been in test leadership for about 15 years. And as far as learning test leadership skills, it's been on the job training. I started out with a couple people on a project. And then from there, our company was acquired by the company I'm working for now. And again, I went back to being solo tester. And through the last 3 years, we've grown the team to about 16 people. And I learn something new every day. It's not something that I don't feel like I do believe strongly you have to learn, you have to continue improving yourself and upping your skills.
Thank you. And Priyanka.
I would say yes. I totally agree with Amy that we learn every day. I'll give an example. I just read the document you guys published in Test Leadership Academy about 101, right? So it's like learning from different content, learning from your bosses. And fortunately, I had awesome leadership above me who pushed me to learn every day, like how as a manager or as a leader I can improve. So that was a big part of me. But like in one of my company, I took a training as a leader as well, which was a very big help as well. So it gave me a perspective to look at other people's jobs. So like when you work as an individual, you're always try to do your best, but bringing best from some 10 different people, it will be very different experience. And that I learned through that training that I had from TrueCar. But it's again on the job training every day, like learning, understanding other people. They're human beings, they're not resource, and making sure that they have everything they need to succeed is what is part of my job, and I learn it every day.
Okay, thank you. And Julia.
Yes, I agree that reading different resources and updating yourself, knowledge about technologies and trends is really important. What I've learned recently is it's also very important to, have to hear the feedback from your subordinates, from the business representatives, from basically everyone around. Because if you don't get that kind of feedback about your work and your leadership style and basically the management and the decisions, it's really difficult to grow. So I find it very actually exciting and motivating to promote people and to ask for feedback, because like in informal way, of course, mostly. because it helps me to grow as a person and to grow me as a leader. So I use that kind of approach for many years now, and I see sometimes it can be, of course, difficult, like psychologically, to hear bad things, and the feedbacks they varies quite often. But it gives a really big opportunity to understand where you can improve and what skills you really need and how can you be even better. So this is basically my approach, to hear what people say and my subordinates as well, and be open about it, and be basically vulnerable, and be ready to hear how you can improve and how you can learn. And then, of course, go and fix it.
Thank you, Julia. And Kwesi, what's your take on the skills?
Well, I think that no matter how much preparation you try and do beforehand, like when you start being a leader, you're going to realize you actually really don't have the skills, and that's for a few reasons. So partially, you're learning new test skills every day, but more importantly, people are complex and tricky and like diverse with a different set of wants and needs, and no amount of learning is ever going to prepare you for how different people can be. They will constantly surprise you, and it's going to require you to constantly adapt and grow to get the best out of them. I think that's sort of like three real things that you need in order to develop as a leader. So first, it's the humility to realize that actually, like, despite maybe being in a position of authority, you don't know everything, and actually you're dependent on your team and the people around you to get the results you need. You need to be curious in terms of being open to learning new skills and new things. But the most important thing, I think, for leadership is learning how to empathize, to really get to understand the people around you, what their wants and needs are. Because if you don't do that, you don't know what motivates them. You don't know what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You don't know what they care about. And without that, you're never going to be able to get the best out of them.
Thank you. And once we start talking about the skills, and I do hear learning, and I do hear a lot of pay attention to people around you and get feedback, and it's a huge topic what I'm hearing from all of you. And so my next question would be, which is a little bit different. What do you do during the day, kind of? What's your job like as a leader? And it's a tricky question because I understand all of you doing something different, but maybe not. So we're going to find out. And I'll start with Fiona.
At the moment, I sit at home. Because I'm a consultant, and my job this year is primarily speaking at conferences and not doing active consulting and not working on software projects. And yes, because I am a consultant, sometimes a contract test manager, it's different. It's different every day. It's different on every project. It's different in every company. And that's in fact what makes it so infinitely interesting to me. But I've done everything from manage a team of 80 people to working with quite small teams. And it's quite different depending on who you're working with. It seems to me though that a lot of what you're doing all day is keeping your ears open. Keeping your ears open to what's going on around you in terms of progress, in terms of how things are happening, but also in terms of how people are working, how well they're working together, what you see in terms of their development needs and so on. And at the same time, it really does depend so much on your role. But keeping an eye out for coaching opportunities or coaching needs, and trying to empower people. And I think that's a really important leadership quality, if you like, and leadership skill to keep looking at people and saying, okay, you seem to have talent in this direction. Let's see what we can do to grow that, or you have skills in this direction and you have the appropriate character. What can we do to develop that? What assignment can we give you that will help you grow? and then trusting that person to do the job, being there for them, and so that if they do get into trouble, they can come back and ask you questions and you can help, but essentially trusting people to do their jobs. And I think that's a very large part of the leadership role that I've tried to do in every organization that I'm in.
Okay, thank you. And Amy Jo.
Yes, so a lot of my day is comprised of many meetings. We have 3 large projects going on right now in the company, and I have quality testers in each of the areas, so I'm often involved in those meetings. However, I continue to make a point to my team that their needs, you know, even no matter how busy I am, because I'll talk about that, I want to help them in whatever way that they need. If they have questions, they want to run something by me, they need to talk about something, that my door is open and I will make myself accessible. If I have to excuse myself from a meeting, I'm going to do that, because I want to, as Fiona said, empower them to work and do better. And that's something I've had to learn and work on, is the delegation. And then realizing and working that through with my boss, it's like, well, that sometimes I don't want to delegate the work because I know my team is really busy too, so that I think I'm going to do it myself. But I've really learned that by delegating, that helps them, empower them, and they can learn and they can move to the next step of leadership if that's where they want to go. So I just think it's very important to be available for your team. I send out daily emails to my team, either some testing skills that some good articles I might have read, or just positive things for the team and how we can grow as a team, or they can challenge them to grow as individuals. Because I think if you're growing, you're learning, and that's key to keeping happy employees.
Thank you. And Yulia, what's your take on it? What's your day look like?
Yes, and I actually see the question from attendees, so maybe I can actually try to cover that a little bit as well. Yes. Our organization is going through transformation at the moment in a company. So I'm pretty much involved in the deciding on the direction we go, including our test strategy and how we want to deliver, including quality of our deliveries. So my day mostly consists also from, like, you know, a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, but it's primarily on program task leadership rather on managing a release or a test team. So in my duties is like to make sure that all the components in our like test strategy like work smoothly and we deliver, and that all the steps in our organization basically fit into the big picture. So I would say that I'm not involved in the, like, you know, managing test activities in a release or in like shorter iterations, but more like on the program level, thinking and design and test approaches on where we are going and what competences we need in terms of tests. So working on how or working on making plans how we will develop those and how we can basically achieve that transformation.
Great. Thank you. And Priyanka, what's your day look like?
Yeah, so my day today look also very different from one day to another. Someday I am working on strategy to hire my next QA, either it's an analyst or SDate. Some days I'm working on 6 different initiatives that we support, like where do we need what kind of support? Do we need immediate automation? Do we need just manual support for that? Do we need more days to test? So be that voice. And some days maybe I spend on different meetings to meet with different leadership in company to make sure that as a QA guild, we are doing the work we are supposed to do, and we are going improving ourselves bit by bit and integrating with developers the way they have visioned. So it's pretty different day to day, but it comprises of supporting 6 different initiatives, 80 different developers, and hiring. Even sometimes I spend days on like reading articles, preparing for my conferences. So pretty different day to day.
Thank you. And Kwesi, what's your day look like?
Well, in a short answer, it's really varied and unpredictable. So in the past, yesterday, I spent the morning doing some hands-on exploratory testing for a new feature, and I spent the afternoon doing some study to get better domain knowledge. I spent the morning today basically helping loads of different people with various things that have been blocking them. And I spent the afternoon doing a bit of detailed project planning to work out actually whether projects coming up is currently doomed or not. I don't think it is, which is good. But the short answer is that it really varies. But the theme underlying that is what I'm trying to work out every day is what I can do now, which is going to have the biggest impact in helping the wider team to succeed. So when I start my day, that's what I try and do. It's what I try and work out. What are the things I can do which are going to help the team as a whole progress more quickly? And I think one of the most important things there, the key thing which you don't want to neglect there, is helping your team to grow and get better. Because the best way to make your team as a whole, deliver, is to grow them to be better and better at their job every day. So yeah, that's a key part of what I do on a week-to-week basis.
Thank you. So it looks like a lot of what you're saying is the job is changing day by day. And a lot of things that a lot of you doing is taking care of your people who work for you or work with you. And that's a lot. And we're going to come back to it. There are some questions from the audience that I'm going to reiterate later. But right now I want to ask, so you as a leader, as a manager, represent your people, your department to the higher ups. What skills do you need to have to look good and make your department look good? I'll start with Fiona, because that's important.
Yeah, I mean, what you heard, I think, from everybody is that as a test manager in particular, you're working with people at all different levels. It might be the development lead, it might be upper management, it might be your own team, it might be leads who report to you, it might be customer. So you're having to work with all kinds of people all the time. To me, the most important thing there is to have political skills. And I know that a lot of people think that think of, as soon as they hear the word politics or political, they think of that as being negative. But I don't think of it as being negative at all. I think of it as because there is politics. Whenever 2 or 3 people are gathered together, there is politics of some kind. I think of political skills as having very good people skills. Advocacy is a really important thing for a test leader or a test manager. Advocating for your team, as you said, advocating for doing very good testing, or advocating for quality at a management level. And in order to do that, I think you need to have some very particular skills. You need to know how to negotiate. You need to know how to make a good case. You need to know what hill to die on, because if you try and die on every hill for everything that you believe in all of the time, you will indeed be dead. So sometimes you need to know, I'm not going to win this one just now, or perhaps I'm going about this the wrong way and trying to persuade people of what I believe needs to be done. So perhaps I'll come at it in a different way, or perhaps, in fact, I'll let this one go, and I'll go over here and put more effort over here. But all of it working on the same goal, right? Of trying to advocate for quality in the company and trying to help the company or the organization. It might not be a company, it might be a public organization, to help the organization achieve whatever quality goals are important for it. So and the one thing actually in here that I find when I do a leadership workshop with people, and one of the first things that everybody identifies and that we all agree on early on in the workshop is that probably the most important skill that any test leader needs is courage. The courage to be honest, the courage to be open with everyone as much as possible, and the courage to fight for the things that you believe are really important, and to stay in problem-solving mode always, rather than any kind of blame. Always to look at what comes up as something that can be solved, and to look at the ways to solve it.
Thank you. And Amy Jo.
I really liked everything Fiona said, and I definitely agree with her. And I think it's important, and this is what I've been working on and having my team work on too, is as far as passing, because really what we're doing is we're collecting information to give to those that matter to help make a decision to, if you need to release a project or a product and when to do that. I think it's very important to be able to tell our story well. And that's what we've been working on is, and I've worked on with my boss and anyone else in leadership roles above me or peers as well, is what our story is, what we've done to test, what things maybe we're not doing to test, where we think the project is at this point, you know, how comfortable are we with the job we've done, or do we need to do more if there's time, if there's not time. You know, we just need to be clear in our story and telling these are the risks that you're going to encounter. And it's, yes, it's political, telling it in a diplomatic way, definitely always standing up for my team if that needs to be. I always, if I get compliments on my team, I always make sure, and I forward it on to my boss always, so he also can see what a good job my teams are doing, and he's very complimentary back to them, which I think helps them want to do better in the future too.
Thank you. And Julia, what's the skills that you need to have for the management to work with the management?
Yes, I believe that actually there are two skills that are important. And the first skill is, of course, the communication and the way you structure information, how you send the message. So when you basically prepare for the meeting where you show results, it's really important to outline maybe 2-3 arguments that are really important for you and for your team, and be very clear and structured on that. And then the second skill, I believe, it's like, you know, having capacity and ability to be an active listener. I don't mean that when you discuss things with management that you start looking in the phone or doing something else, but sometimes when you hear, like, you know, the arguments against your results or questioning your results or some sort of judgment, you kind of shut down inside, and then you don't hear it anymore. You start thinking, you start justifying it in your head, and all of that, like, you know, thoughts spinning. To have the ability to stop that process and to really like sit and listen what your manager means and what he or she questions or why he questions, to understand the arguments that you receive, is also a really important skill, because then you have that open dialogue, and listening really actively, you're able to understand how you can improve again and how you can maybe make results better next time. So sometimes it's really like in fact that you could improve in some certain areas. So I think communication and active listening, yeah.
Thank you. And Priyanka, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I have a unique story to share here because last three companies which I joined, all of them were starting their QA process, and somehow at some point they actually failed to integrate with it. So my strategy was for the upper management is learn where they failed on the first place and why it was a failure. So learning from failure and making a checklist like, okay, this thing made it impossible to have a QA team or a QA process. And then coming up with a projection, like what we will do different, and setting a goal with the management that helped me the most. So like I have quarterly goals, I have monthly goals for my whole guild that I share with my leadership, and then get the buy-in that, okay, in this quarter, we're going to implement this, that going to help the whole company or the whole developer guild. That way we also achieving one small baby step on our guild, and then we are communicating it to the higher management so they can see the prospect, like what exactly QA is doing as a whole. And this is the first company where we do 12 releases a day. So it was challenging in the beginning to come up with a process that will support CI/CD. And like that's the whole strategy that I took, and I think it's very important as a leader and communicating upwards is learning from what did not work previously. So like for an example, if I'm supporting 12 releases a day, I need huge and solid automation. So coming up with that and communicating it to them and implementing it.
Thank you. And Kwesi, what's your take on it?
Well, I think a key skill which is important is essentially with your higher up managers, you need to understand what their incentives are, what pressures they have, and what really matters to them. And then you need to work out what your team's needs are. But what the skill was actually translating your team's needs into a language that chimes with the higher management's, wants or desires, or like what really motivates them. So as an example, if you're in a context where you do lots of scripted testing, you want to move to exploratory testing, and your upper management saying, oh, well, if you do that, how are you going to be able to have control over your projects? You could explain the benefits of it, but one way you could go about it is explaining to them that actually we've tried it and it's a lot cheaper to do some exploratory testing. And actually, as long as we document how we go, not only do we actually have control, so we can change what we're doing actually based on what's happening. So if you translate it in that way, upper management can then see the benefit of it in terms that they themselves understand and that matter to them, and then they're much more likely to accept it. So yeah, in that case, us persuading them that actually we still have control if we did it this way was what essentially allowed them to okay the strategy. So that's one thing. And the other one, which has been mentioned before, so I won't go on about it too long, is, again, advocating for your people. So because upper management are a bit removed from what your people are doing, and one of your goals is to develop your people, just every opportunity you can get to tell upper management about, the great job they're doing is really valuable and goes a long way.
Thank you very much. I have a few questions from the audience here, and I don't expect very huge long answer, but please give some thought on the first question. Seema Prabhu asked about the QA leadership role itself. What is the main part of leadership in test? Is it people management, or is it limited to testing the team only? Or being involved and fix the complete process requirements to release? So is it about process improvement? Is it about team personal management, or is it about testing kind of processes management? I'll start with Kwesi.
Well, in a short answer, it's a bit of a cop-out, but it does depend. So I think all three of those skills are important, but it just depends on the challenges you have. So say you have a new QA team, the key things which is going to provide value is probably people management, training them up to be really good at their job. Whereas if you have lots of experienced testers, but you happen to be in a context where, your processes are completely disorganized, or actually the challenges are facing. So say you want to now release, 10 times a day as opposed to once every 3 months, then process management is going to be the key thing there. So to summarize, it's basically working out what your biggest challenge is, and then working out which of those three strands is going to help the most.
Got it. Yulia, what's your take on it?
Yeah, yes, I think it can be really different. Like in my case, it's fixing the complete process more or less, but also as well understanding the business needs. What is it actually our business users want? What they mean the good qualities, to understand what improvements we need to implement in the test process, basically, whether this is like requirements and acceptance criteria, or this is the way we do the testing during our deliveries. But of course, it also includes some kind of people and team management, because you're working with people all the time. And not only like, your direct subordinates who report to you, but as well like, the business representatives. You also need to have some skills and work doing like, managing the communication and collaboration with them. So I would say that it's basically leading the test as a process, test as a team, both quality as well.
Thank you. And Priyanka, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it's an amalgam of everything that she asks. So it is leading people, it is leading the whole testing process end to end, and also fixing the blockers to make the release possible. So when you take a leadership role, it's wearing different hat different day, and making sure from your perspective, from your team perspective, everything is working as it intend to. And one more thing I want to add here is it's also like when you are in a QA leadership position, it's very important to spread the word that QA is a whole team responsibility. It's not only QA team's responsibility. So spreading that skill to the whole organization, so it's like not throwing over a fence kind of a situation, is also very important.
Thank you. And Amy Jo, what's your take on it?
Yes, I'm agreeing with what everyone said. It's all three are very important. People management, again, I think that's very high on the list, and you have to take care of the people. But if you don't equally learn how to do those other couple skills, it's a whole package. And I agree that doing the roadblocks, that's a really important part of your job as a leadership, and communicating with people, including the team, the people that are maybe having the problem, but others around that are affected by the project. So it really is, you have to have skills in all three areas, and you need to work on them as you work through different areas, and just maybe pick one each week to work on improving.
Thank you. And Fiona, what's your take on it?
I agree with what other people have said, that it's very much an amalgam of all of those things. But the degree to which you pursue any particular one, I think, is largely a matter of what your specific role in an organization is and what level that role is at. If I've been director of quality assurance for a software company, that's quite different from being a project test manager or a program test manager. And in that overall QA role, I was responsible for leadership in quality software development processes, not simply testing processes. Not that I would go in and say, thou shalt do code reviews or design reviews or any of those things, but that I would work with the development team to facilitate workshops where they defined how they wanted to go about doing those things. So as I said, it really depends on what your specific role in the company is. But almost certainly, regardless of what your role is, you're going to be responsible for the testing processes. And therefore, you're going to need to keep up with what's going on in the world, about how testing processes might be changing, or about how what new capabilities might be out there, what new tools might be available, and so on. You're probably almost always going to have team responsibilities as well. Even if you're not a direct manager, even if your responsibility is as a quality coach or as a testing coach, you will have responsibilities to the people that you're coaching or that you're working with.
Thank you. There is another question. I'm gonna read it. It's from Shiley, and the question is, how do you gain political or negotiating skills? Can we learn that? Isn't it personality based? It's a very important question because yes, you do learn it. And I would like to go around and ask, how do you gain those skills? It's a skills to be gained. So how do you do this? So I start with Fiona.
I'll start by saying that I think that there are similar ways to learn almost all skills. Yes, I definitely think that political and negotiating skills can be learned. They are, but in order to do it, I think that you need to practice. You need to go out there and learn about techniques, because there are certainly techniques for negotiating, for example. And there's an excellent series of books, for example, by William Ury, which I have right there on the shelf. It starts with a book called, I think it was Getting to Yes. Anyway, there's a trio of books which are very useful in terms of describing skills and case studies and so on. So that kind of learning, and potentially taking courses. But when I talk about practice, you don't necessarily just practice on the job. You can also practice outside the job. I once had a side role as a union steward, and I was on the negotiating team for the contract in the shop that I worked in. That gave me practice in negotiating. There are other ways that you can gain that kind of practice. And I think it's worth looking at your life. It's worth looking at the opportunities in your life to see how you can learn, because just about everything that we do, whether you're coaching a baseball team or anything like that, you have the opportunity to learn skills.
Thank you. And Kwesi.
Well, I agree pretty much with everything Fiona said there. What I'd just like to emphasize is essentially underlying all that is, well, your goal is to work out what makes people tick and then just tell them what they want to hear. That's actually what is at a hard negotiation, really. If you do that, you tend to get what you want. Yeah, there are loads of resources out there for negotiation. And yeah, you're right. I think looking for opportunities you can practice outside of work, and maybe not think of it as negotiation, but, think of it maybe as, practicing getting your wants and needs across, which happen like in all walks of life, with your friends and family. You're going to have, needs. They might, seem to compete with other people's needs. So, working out how to express that in a way which, helps get your needs across it's going to make a difference not only in your professional life, but also your personal life. So, yeah, I recommend, getting some books and putting it into practice wherever you can.
Thank you. And Amy, Jo, what's your take on it?
Yes, definitely the practice. For me, for political, I think it's all about building relationships. I'm a big relationship builder, learning the people, learning all the different people you're working with, because each person's different, as we all know. And once you kind of learn what they need and like, and you know what you need, you can work better with that person. And so that's my number one thing, is just building relationships, working on relationships, just really listening, the active listening to these people when you're with them in different situations will really help. And then, yeah, practicing. I just spent the weekend with my grandson, and, even practicing negotiation with kids could probably help out improving your skills. So definitely outside the work, like Fiona mentioned, it's just a lot of different ways to practice.
Thank you. Priyanka, what's your take on it?
I think Amy just told what I am supposed to say. So I have I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I negotiate with her every day on everything, from eating to sleeping. So yes, it's like sometimes it comes very naturally to you, but if you want to learn, it's absolutely out there, and there are various ways to learn it, and you learn it from everyday work that you do. And absolutely agree with Fiona and Amy and Kwesi that yeah, listen to people what they want to listen from you. That's the skill that you need to tell, and tell it in a way that is like pleasant to their ears. Like you can say same sentence 5 different ways, and one might offend somebody, one might really please somebody. So it's that skill that you need to learn, which others will not be offended, and at the same time they will be taking action of what you're asking them to.
Thank you. And Julia.
Yes, I had a little bit the special approach to the learning the negotiation skills. I think we all, like, managers, we all have to be a little bit like psychologists and understand who we are in person, what triggers us, what makes us happy, what makes us irritated, and then learn a little bit about the personalities around us. Because if you're gonna talk, that was actually quite funny. Once I was in the bookstore, and there was that book called Surrounded by Idiots. And it immediately triggered me. I was like, yes, this is what I need to read. And that was the book that was actually Swedish author. So I bought it. And what he explains basically is like, 4 personality types, like the sanguine, choleric, and melancholic, etc. And how actually you as a leader need to communicate with those different personality types, because the way you talk to one personality type won't work, for example, for another one. And for me, it was like, aha. And he was actually given like examples, like what may irritate us in other people. And I was like reading through, and I found out all my colleagues and myself, and it was kind of funny experience, because then I understood, okay, this is how I shall talk to different people, by understanding who they are and who I am. So it was, my way of learning it.
Thank you very much. Which it's interesting how this question brings us to another one. Ashwin is asking, in a test leadership role, how important are the technical skills? And also, any roadmaps for individual contributors to move into leadership roles? Let me, if you can start with, in test leadership role, how important are the technical skills? We're gonna go around with this question, and then we're gonna end with the roadmaps to move into leadership role and how you develop your leadership potential, because there is another question on that. So the first question is, in a test leadership role, how important are the technical skills? And I will start with Fiona.
I think that inevitably, as you move into management, you get further away from hands-on technical skills, because you can't be an expert in both. And when your role is something else, you need to focus on that role. But at the same time, I think the technical awareness is absolutely essential. I think that you need to understand how software is developed, the kinds of issues that arise with the software that you are working with, and with the software development methods that your company practices, that the technical team around you practices. So that's one set of technical skills that I think you need to have. If your company, for instance, works with microservices, you need to know what microservices are and how they operate, and what's important about them, and what the pitfalls are with them. At the same time, I think there's that other level of technical skill, which is testing technical skill. And yes, I have not been a hands-on tester for a very long time. At the same time, I do have a pretty good understanding of what testing technical skills are, and of how to evaluate them in other people, and of how to guide other people towards learning those technical skills and acquiring those technical skills. And I take a lot of time in my day to keep up with advances in those things. So yes, at that level, I think it's really important to maintain technical awareness.
Thank you. And Amy Jo, what's your take on it?
I agree with Fiona, and that's been a struggle of mine. But realizing that I need to get away, I can't keep up with all the detailed technical skills, but that we need to have that awareness and keep looking into it. So for now, for example, I'm looking more into AI and machine learning, trying to keep a step ahead. I mean, at least our company's not into that yet, but I need to at least be aware of it and need to let and trust my team to dig into the technical skills. And sometimes because I'm not into the details, I have to ask what seems like uncomfortable questions for me because like, I don't know, but they're always very good at explaining. We have to get comfortable with maybe not knowing all the detailed technical role items, because we do have to concentrate more on our job as a leadership and working on improving that role and really working that role.
Thank you. And Julia, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it's more important to be to have this kind of logical way of thinking rather than having technical IT education. Of course, it's a big plus if you have like programming experience or programming education. But I actually know quite many people who have like different education, like being a teacher or being a chemist, who became QA successfully, and they are very good in that. So I would say having rather like logical way of thinking is more important, and cultivating and working on that rather than getting technical skills.
Thank you. And Priyanka, what's your take on it?
Yeah, again, I agree with everyone who said, like, yes, technical skills are absolutely needed, but do you need to be as technical as a lead as did? No. As a QA manager, do you need to be hands-on all the time? No, it's not possible because your role is not to be a tester, and it's like facilitating everybody in the team. So when like it is absolutely needed that you know the technical stuff in your project and like your product using, but at the same time it's okay to not be like too deep in it to be successful in this role.
Thank
So
you.
you will have like your proper team members who are the experts in it, but you can still know about it but not be the actual expert in a specific technical skill.
Thank you. And Kwesi, what's your take on it?
Well, all my points have already been taken. So the only other thing which I'd add really is, yes, you don't need to, there's a danger of feeling that you actually need to be the expert and the one to give the advice, but actually you can provide a lot of benefit by being aware of, who the experts in a particular thing are and just pointing people in that direction. For example, somebody wants to learn about security testing. I know very little about security testing, but I know people who I would say, have quite a lot of expertise there. So I would be able to help them learn about that by saying, well, I mean, I don't know anything, but if you talk to, person X, Y, and Z, they'd be able to, give you loads of details. So just by facilitating that link, you're actually helping people to get better. So the actual detailed technical knowledge doesn't have to come from you.
Thank you. And our last question would be, because we are about like at the end of our roundtable, the roadmaps, your suggestions to how individual contributors can move into leadership role, and also for the new QA managers with different experience elsewhere, because some of us started not in QA, ended up in testing. What would be, is there any suggested college experience that could assist with learning the craft, or anything that you can suggest for people to grow into leadership and, management role in our industry, in QA and testing? And I'll start with Fiona.
I think it really depends, and therefore it's a difficult question. But I think one way is be an embedded tester on an agile team, because in order to to play that role and to play that role well, you need to be a leader. You need to lead on quality advocacy. You need to lead on potentially what kind of testing needs to be done and how it needs to be done, and to work really closely with the rest of the team. And I think that in doing that, in developing those interpersonal skills, in coaching other people to do testing, developers to do testing, and so on, you'll develop a lot of the skills that you need. I also encourage people to sit down and draw yourself a roadmap. Take a look at a list of skills that you think you might need to have, and there are lists out there. I've got some that I can happily share, and there are many others. And then sit down and work out for yourself. What's your roadmap going to be? How will that fit with your life? How can you learn those things?
Thank you. Priyanka, what's your take on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can absolutely become a QA manager from another role, but I would say like start with a small team, so it's easier with the learning, and it's like easy to learn and easy to implement stuff. So like my first leadership role was a pre-startup, a company called HomeMe, where there were only 10 developers and I was the only QA. But then I came up with the challenge how I'm gonna support 10 different teams as a one QA. So then when I grew as a leader, I went out and see what else I can do. I used crowdsourcing testing. I managed like some crowdsource testers. So there are 100 ways to learn things in today's world, from like digitally, from Udemy or Coursera, free courses, right? From conferences like Test Academy, or even from different blogs. So there are absolutely 1,000 ways to do it. Coming to the roadmap, I absolutely agree with Fiona. Like maybe set 3 top goals for a particular year. For example, this year my goal was to go ahead and participate in different conferences and share my story, like how I came to this role and how I became what I am today, right? And learn more about image recognition and image visual regression testing. So this is some of the example I set for myself, and I set small steps like what exactly I need to do. So like, for example, to speak in a conference, I need to submit 100 of CFPs, right? To know like where you can submit it. To learn visual testing, I have to jot down what are the different kinds of tool available there and what I can do POCs on, and what are the blogs I need to write. So first writing down what you want in this year, and then writing down what you need to do to get those goals achieved will definitely help you towards your career.
Thank you. Yulia, what's your take on it?
I would suggest doing 2 things. First thing, go and check ICT-QB, depending on which level is actual, foundation, or maybe advanced or whatever. And then the second one, go and get mentor, because I think it's really important to have someone who can give you valuable feedback and who can help you to go that way. In my career, I used to have a mentor, and I don't have now. But I think it's really important to have that kind of person who can help you to grow.
Thank you. Kwesi, what's your take on it?
Well, lots of good points there. I think the thing I'd like to emphasize is just how many ways there are to work out to achieve the goals that you want. So I agree that the first thing you need to do is to work out what you actually want to achieve, because obviously what you do depends on that. But I mean, the resources are endless. So, for example, say you want to talk at a conference, like you can get people in the world of testing do offer free mentoring for first-time conference speakers. So you can find that if you wanted to learn more about testing fundamentals, there are so many courses or websites online that have them. You can go to meetups, you can go to conferences. There are lots of like books and blogs about testing. So I think the key thing I say there is, just try to explore all the resources that are available. Try a few out of your comfort zone. So, for example, going to meetups, not knowing anyone, was a bit of a scary thing for me, but actually turns out to be something I enjoyed, was quite useful. And then work out which ones work for you.
Thank you. And
what my talk about, start working on yourself, and you can, first you got to be able to lead yourself, but then start looking, and again, like everyone has said, make a list of items that you feel like you need to learn. There's so many books on leadership out there. Start reading a few of those. John C. Maxwell is one of them. And James Bach, The Secrets of a Buccaneer, I think is part of the title. I think it's chapter 11. He has a whole self-learning checklist, and I think it's a good one. If you review that, that's a good way to get started on figuring out some things you might want to learn and in order to become a better leader, and just start watching other leaders and seeing what you like and don't like and trying to adopt some of those skills. And you can also lead without authority. I mean, even if you don't have the authority, start practicing. And like Fiona said, like maybe in an agile team meeting or in an agile group or some other group, just practicing kind of taking a leadership role. And that's usually fairly easy to do if you're in a group. A lot of people might tend to hold back while you step in and take charge, and that will help give you some of those needed skills to move into actual test leadership role.
thank you very much, Amy Jo. We're gonna wrap it up today, and thank you so much, all of you who joined us. Thank you, our wonderful panelists. I encourage everyone who is an attendee to connect with our panelists, and you can learn from them one-on-one. Also, watch out for them speaking. They obviously share their experiences and they teach at the conferences. One of those conferences, Test Leadership Congress. Fiona was very nice. She was part of the program committee, so we chose the best of the best in our industry. And the Test Leadership Congress is developed to help people grow and into the leadership roles in software testing and QA. Please join us and please keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.